Good afternoon, and welcome to the 800 Credit Score Man Show. I am your host, Kevin King. He is I, and I am him, the 800 Credit Score Man himself. And once again, thank each and every one of you for coming in and listening to the 800 Credit Score Man Show. I truly, truly appreciate it. So, how you guys doing out there today? I have a lot of stuff popping off for today's show. So we're going to talk about a whole myriad of things, announcements to make, all kind of stuff that's going on in the show today. So be prepared. Prepare yourself. I might be bouncing around all over the place today. Who knows? More than I usually do. So just stick with me today. Today, the general topic is going to be, or the topic that we're really going to explore the most, if you will, today is going to be why your credit score drops. So recently I was doing some research about different things about credit, new things that are coming out, old things that are going away and whatnot. And I came across an article that talked about, why your credit score goes down. Ironically, or I guess we'll stick with ironically, that's a question that has been coming to me a lot lately. Sometimes it appears that people's credit scores are dropping for no particular reason, and they're dropping by a whole bunch. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today on the show, and we've got a pretty good question of the day as well. So that's what we're going to talk about today, even with that good question of the day as well. And so let me start off with a couple shout outs, right? So I like to shout out the youngest among us first, typically, if I've got one. So I got to shout out Anthony Bodie Jr., the 2-year-old. Yes, he's 2 years old. He celebrated a birthday, so I want to say happy birthday to you. Yes, he is a relative of mine. That is my cousin. So, little Ant, I want to say happy birthday to you, my man. I got to shout out this young man, Ethan Bonds. Ethan turns 14 years old, and I think today is actually his birthday. So I want to say happy birthday to you, Ethan, the proud son of Richard and Vicky Bonds. Now, look, Ethan, if you're listening, I know you're listening. Your mom and dad are going to make sure you listen to your shout out. So listen to me. 1, tell your mom and dad not to put the electric bill in your name. I'm trying to help you protect your credit. Tell them don't put the electric bill in your name, not ever. And tell mom and dad to add you to a credit card when you turn 17. So you got 3 more years. Tell mom and dad to add you to one of their credit cards as an authorized user when you turn 17. That way, when you're ready to buy your first car when you're in college or when you're done with college, because I know they're going to buy you a car. They're probably going to buy you a Benz. When you get out of college, you won't need them to co-sign for you because you'll have established some credit. So Ethan, make sure you do that, and happy birthday to you, my man. I got to give an anniversary, happy anniversary, 6th anniversary shout out to Jawan and Yolanda Strader. They're celebrating their anniversary. So happy anniversary to you guys. May you have many, many more. All right, so before I bore you guys to death with a bunch of shout outs and all that stuff, let me jump into a couple of the things that I want to talk to you about your credit score dropping. So why did my credit score drop? I think that's what's going to be the title of the show. So you guys, one of the first things, so some things that, and I'm going to say this first before we even get to one of these, but some of the things that can cause your score to drop seem positive, and they're probably positive for you in the long run, but they may not be in the short term. So keep that in mind. So yes, your score can drop by some things that may be positive for you, financially positive for you and whatnot. And they're good for you in the long term because you get to keep that money in your pocket or apply that money somewhere else to get rid of some debt or whatever it is that you want to do. But in the short term, you might take a little hit on your credit report, all right? So, and your credit score. So make sure that you do that. Like, the credit scoring system has buckets, and I haven't talked about these buckets in a long time, what I call buckets. So you have these different credit buckets. So if you've ever filed bankruptcy, you're in a bucket of people with bankruptcy. So like, you might have a decent score, or maybe you have a bad score, or your score is climbing, and you have filed bankruptcy before. At this point, you're basically being compared to people that have filed bankruptcy before. So if you're doing much better than all of those people, then your credit score is going to be a little bit better. So that's one of those buckets I'm talking about. If you're a person that has had a foreclosure, You may be in this bucket of people that have had mortgage issues, and then let's say that comes off of your credit report, then you're going to be in a different bucket. And these are the kinds of things that can impact your credit score. Positive or negative, up or down, they can impact your credit score. So the first thing I want to mention about what can drop your credit score, of course, is something that a late payment. If you're 30 days late on an account that shows up on your credit report, it's absolutely going to drop your credit score. 30 to 100 points is what I always tell you guys. And yes, I'm not kidding. 100 points can be dropped off for you having a late payment, and latest being 30 days late or more on your credit report. If that happens, then yes, you will take a dip in your credit score if you have a late payment. So that's one of the first things. Why is that drop so dramatic? Again, things depend. It depends on what it is. I think I mentioned last week, or maybe I didn't mention it on the show last week. I was having a conversation with someone that the higher your credit score is, the worse it is for you if you have some hiccups. So if you've got a high credit score, you've got a 815 credit score, and you have a late payment, it's going to be more of a drop for you than some person that has a 615 credit score and they have a late payment. I know it's not fair. It seems like it ought to be, everybody, if you get a late payment, I don't care if your score is 500 or if your score is 800, if you get a late payment, then you get 30 points off. Whatever it is, that's how it should be. It seems that way, but that's not how this scoring system works. So yes, number one thing is late payments, of course. Now, second thing, if you close a credit card or a credit card is closed for you, then yes, your credit score is going to fall. So that's why I always tell you guys, don't close your credit cards. We all get happy when we finally get out of debt. We finally pay off that credit card that we've had forever. It's been on our credit report and in our wallets for 20 years, whatever it is, and you get happy about it that you finally paid it off and you want to close that card. Keep that card. It's helping you more than it's hurting you. Keep that card, especially if you have control. And I'm sure you have your self-control if you've been able to do all the things you can regarding to getting it closed in the first place. So yes, if you close a card, it's going to drop your score. If a lender closes a card, then it's going to drop your score. Now, lenders close cards if you're not doing what you're supposed to, like you're late all the time or whatever. They can decide we're going to close this person's card even if you owe them, even if you have a balance. That's one of the worst things that can happen, because for example, you had $1,000 limit and you had a $500 balance on there. Well, that $1,000, that gave you a 50% credit utilization. So that was helping you having that limit on there, and the more you paid it down, the more help you're getting with your credit score. And now they take away that limit from you, but you still have a balance. So you have a negative, if you will, credit utilization, or it's over 100% with the credit utilization, and that's detrimental for your score. So you don't want the lender to close it on you either for that reason. And then unfortunately, sometimes when a place goes out of business and you had a credit card with them, whether it's a store card or whatever, like Toys R Us just went out of business, JCPenney's, are they still around? I think they're still around. But like Sears and other places that have gone out of business and people had credit cards with them, then it becomes an issue when those cards get closed because that business is no longer viable. You can also get a credit card closed on you for non-usage. So if you haven't used a card in quite some time, and that's going to vary from company to company. I mean, if you've got a card from, say, a jewelry store somewhere, that jewelry store may close your card if you haven't used them in 2 years. But say you have a Chase Visa, or you've got a Citibank MasterCard or something, they may keep it open longer, 5, 6, 7, 8, who knows how many years, even though you haven't used it. But non-usage is one of the reasons that credit card companies will go ahead and close those cards as well. So you make sure that you don't let anybody close a card on you, and you don't close any cards as well. So that's the number 2 thing that I want to tell you about that can make your credit score go down. Before I get to number 3, I don't want to get too deep in the show before I make this announcement. So I'm going to take this pregnant pause, if you will, a point of personal privilege right quick, and say this. So all week, I told you guys to follow me on all kind of social media, right? So get to my Facebook page, 800 Credit Score Man. Get in Credit Score Comeback, that Facebook group. Join that group. Follow me on Instagram as 800 Credit Score Man on Instagram. You can also follow me on Twitter at credit score _ on Twitter, and I always follow back on Twitter. The other ones I can't promise, but I always follow back on Twitter. So at credit score _ man on Twitter, unless you're a credit person. If you're a credit person on Twitter, I probably don't follow you. So that's just my thing. So follow me on any one of those platforms. So I've been teasing, if you will, all week about something that's coming all week. So a couple weeks ago, I did a show called The 5 Pillars of Credit. Within that show, I said that this would become something that I want you to pay attention to and listen to in the future. So I'm telling you now, I'm announcing right now my ebook. I'm putting out an ebook, only on ebook for right now. I'm putting out a small ebook that is entitled The 5 Pillars of Credit. So I want you to mark this down so you can get the 5 Pillars of Credit. It's going to launch on March the 20th. March the 20th. It's spring. First day of spring. We can argue that all you want, the 20th or the 21st. First day of spring, as far as I'm concerned, is March the 20th. A time of renewal, a time of refreshing. I'm going to give you the 5 Pillars of Credit in more detail, of course, in this small ebook. So this, you'll have something tangible. You can look at it in your phone, on your Kindle. It'll be available on Amazon first. Maybe only on Amazon, and then after that it'll be other places. But yes, the 5 Pillars of Credit by Kevin King, the 800 Credit Score Man, will be out on March the 20th. I'm pushing for March the 20th, so you guys pray for me and hope that pushes out. But not only, and why am I doing it on March the 20th? And this isn't a short announcement time for if you want to really market a book and do what you're supposed to do, right? It's a short time. Well, the reason I'm doing that, March the 20th is my mom's birthday. So may she rest in peace. So that's my mom's birthday, March the 20th. And that's why I always say that it's spring. I don't care if they ever switch it to the 21st and 19th or whatever. March the 20th is spring, as far as I'm concerned. That's my mom's birthday. So I'm going to launch this book there. If you ever got a piece of information that you didn't know before, if you're ever entertained by one of my whack jokes or whatever it is, I want you to go get this book. If you like, I've listened to everything you ever said. I don't need this book. Support the show then. This is your way to support the show. It's not going to be a whole bunch of money. You guys probably have this change laying around. So you guys go check out the 5 Pillars of Credit. It'll be available on March the 20th. All right, so let me jump to number 3 then. All right, number 3 as far as things that will drop your credit score. Number 3 is your credit limit is lowered. So if you get a credit limit lowered and that happens as well, like maybe before they close, just talked about closing cards, somebody closing your card, before they close your card, then they may lower your credit limit first. Because like this person isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. We want to limit our liability, if you will. So we're going to lower their credit limit. So let's take that example from before. You get $1,000 limit, right? You already owe them $500, but then they lower your credit limit to $800. That pushes your credit utilization up. So it gets higher and not lower. Before you were at 50%, now you're much higher than the 50% on that particular card. So if that happens to you, if it's lowered by the by the lender or by the credit card company, then yes, that's going to drop your score because it's increasing your credit utilization. Is basically as if you went out and spent some additional money because your credit utilization is being impacted on that. And while I'm here talking about this credit limit and it being lowered, take the increase. I spoke to somebody, and I remember who it is. I won't call their name out. But I spoke to somebody that has been declining increases that her credit card companies have been sending to her. And I'm here to tell you, take that increase. Unless you don't have that kind of self-discipline not to go use it. But take the increase. So what I mean by this is maybe some of you haven't had an increase. If you have a credit card and it's your first card or, I don't know, your 9th card, but it's a $500 limit. And the company sends you an email, calls you up, or however they communicate with you and say, hey, we're going to increase your credit limit to $1,000. Sometimes they give you the option to say yay or nay about that. Other times they don't. They just let you know, hey, we've increased your credit limit, $500, $1,000, or whatever it is. But if you have the option and they're asking you, do you want your credit